is my pleasure to introduce Ed Pozzuoli. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Tripp Scott, an accomplished negotiator and litigator, and has extensive experience handling state, county, local governmental affairs. He is nationally recognized as a legal expert in charter and educational law with a particular emphasis on constitutional and governmental litigation, administrative law, and election law. He's a regular contributor to Fox News, Forbes, and one of Florida Trend's Florida 500. If you tune into This Week in South Florida, you might see him there quite often as well. Maybe even run into him at the studio. In addition, he has received the Republican Party's Spirit of Lincoln Award and the South Florida Business Journal's Ultimate CEO Award. A friend to the Tower Forum, we're so happy to have you today as our moderator.
Adam, you and I have known each other for way too long. It's been 100 days since you've been president. Why don't you give us a little snapshot of some of your priorities and what you think you've accomplished? You know, you got it all solved already, right?
So let me first start by thanking you all for coming to Tower Forum lunch. Thank you for the invitation. And Ed, let me just share with the audience that I would not be the president of Florida Atlantic University without Ed Pozzuoli. And let me tell you why.
It's not really a great story.
Because 32 years ago, I was in between my first and second year of law school. And I know we have a future aspiring lawyer here and our young FAU student, Judith. But I was in between my first and second year of law school, and I was looking for a clerkship, internship in the summer. And I knew Ed from the community and having been involved in Broward County as well, even though I grew up in Palm Beach Gardens in Palm Beach County. And I came down to Ed and he said, well, let me see, I might need a clerk. I might need an intern for the summer. Let me give you this assignment. Let me see how you do. And I'll give you the short version of the story, but that was that I brought him back the assignment and said, thank you, but I know now I never want to practice law in my life. And I ended up going into business and then got elected to the legislature and private sector and ultimately president of Florida Atlantic University. But had I gone on a different path, I probably would not be here today. So thank you for that shitty assignment.
And now we want to know what the assignment was.
No. And clearly, he's made the right choice.
But
now talk about your priority. Now that we got that story out of the way, which is, by the way,
true story.
True story.
True story. So having said that, I am honored to be the 8th president of Florida Atlantic University. It was just over 90 days ago that I began the job. It was just over 4 months ago when I was selected unanimously by the Board of Trustees. And let me just also thank all of the Florida Atlantic University team that is out here today. And let me say to all the other members of the OWL community, it's great to see you. Go Owls. But in the first 90 days, I had a very important strategy, which I think we executed very well, which was be very visible in the community, touch every part of the Boca Raton campus, visit every one of our campuses throughout the region from Fort Lauderdale to Fort Pierce. And we have our director of our Harbor Branch campus up in Fort Pierce with us today. So Jim, thank you for being here. But we are a university that stretches 100+ miles of coastline from Broward County all the way up to St. Lucie County. And it was important for me to get out and touch every corner of this university, talk to students, faculty, staff, and really have an immersion into the campus culture and into the university culture. And I would share this, Ed, that had I not been from here, had I not had the honor of serving in the legislature for the time that I did, and I had just moved here from some other part of the country, this learning curve of getting to know the region would have taken 2, 3, if not longer years. And so I'm honored and blessed because walking into rooms in Broward County like I am today, or other meetings that I've had in my first 3 months as president, I've known so many people and have felt the warm welcome, not just from our campus, not just from our students and faculty and staff, but also from our community. And so as we turn the page and now start thinking strategically about the next 5-year strategic plan for the university, where do we want to be? We've come a long way as a university. We're only 61 years old, but we're now an R1 research institution. We're one of about 200 universities in the country that can lay claim to that Carnegie R1 title, which is a very prestigious designation. We have over $100 million in funded research. We're also a Carnegie Opportunity University for providing higher access and higher earnings to our students. And when you think about our student population, 40% are Pell eligible, so we're an engine of social mobility for our students. 35% of our student population is first in their family to go to college. And I got to shake a lot of hands, 3,200 hands, when we had our recent commencement of our largest class of 3,700 students. And so when you think about being an R1, when you think about being a Carnegie Opportunity University, we're also one of only 21 universities in the entire country to have both designations. And so we have so much to be able to build off of as we develop this 5-year strategic plan. One of the reasons I'm here today and have been spending so much time in Broward is I really want to make sure that we're representing this amazing region from Fort Lauderdale to Fort Pierce. And I want to leverage, as we develop this plan, I want to leverage our geographic advantages. There's no other university that can say that they have campuses on the ocean, that they have campuses in a region that have this much talent and this many resources and opportunities. And then finally, I want to differentiate this university. We can't be all things to all people. We can't boil the ocean, so to speak. We can't be great at everything. And so we really need to differentiate our offerings to make sure that we become a first choice university for Florida students as well as other students. And I'll end on this note because there's so many of you that know the history of the university, starting as a upper division only university, then transitioning into a 4-year university, and then transitioning into the modern day university, which is on-campus housing, Division I athletics, a football stadium that seats 30,000, had a great Final Four run a few years ago. But when you think about where we are as a university today, we have so much potential to be a first choice university. We had 57,000 applications for 4,500 seats in our fall 2025 class. Not only do we have the largest graduating class in the spring of 2025, but our fall 2025 class will be the largest and the most academically competitive that this university has ever seen. So we're on the rise, and the momentum and the trajectory is all headed up, and we want to make sure that you're a part of our success, and we want to better integrate the university into the community and better integrate the community into the university.
So, I mean, like FAU, which is a hidden gem in our community, I don't think we fully appreciate all the things, some of the things that you just said, Adam. Tripp LaMarca, talking about hidden gems.
Well, she's right over there.
Yeah. Smart boy, right there, smart boy.
30 years last week.
So, Chip, by the way, congratulations to you and best of luck to you. Chip, Adam's background as a state legislator, how do you think that helps him maximize the benefit to the university as its president?
Look, I think we can use the late, unfortunately I have to use the word late, but the late John Thrasher, president of Florida State University, was a lot of criticism when he was given the job. Former Army veteran in Vietnam, lawyer, lobbyist.
Hell of a warrior.
House Speaker, Senate member, probably on to be Senate President if he didn't take the job at Florida State. But when he got there was a lot of, some criticism because he was a legislator. And he showed what can be done. The relationships, this all comes down to relationships. The relationships that he still had with the legislature. Florida State you can look at the budget right now. Ryan Britton and I were talking yesterday. Florida State's going to get a boatload of money. I mean, the work that you can do as a former legislator to highlight the programs, the new Office of the Ocean Economy, the Israel Institute, a lot of different things that are unique to FAU. And for a reason, legislators around the state, myself included, cared enough to make sure that they were in the right place. And I think Adam specifically here's the qualifier I would say. Adam could have done this leaving the legislature, but I'm glad that Adam had a decade of private, business experience for a large company, working through a lot of landmines and different issues that he was great at, and also in the insurance industry. Now brings that along with the relationships in Tallahassee to go and make sure that these programs are not only initiated at Florida Atlantic University, which is my alma mater as well, but also continuously funded. And look, I'll give you another example. Florida, I think, and you may touch on this, but Florida was the outlier in what happened last year after October 7th, right? None of that craziness happened, terrible things, but Florida as a state, and FAU is a bellwether as well, was very careful to make sure that all students felt welcome on campus, but that there wasn't something that could be detrimental to any group of people on campus. So I think he'll be the perfect person for the university at this time. I hope he stays long, and it's his last job, because that means he'll probably be there 10, 15 years, and that's great. But look, I think the other thing is when we're in legislative session, which unfortunately this year has been a lot longer than 60 days, we have folks come up there, right? Adam came up prior to being official, came up after. The team that has come up from Dr. Polsky, Dr. Sullivan, the lobbying team that comes up to Tallahassee, you'd say it's a smaller, university in numbers, but very effective in how you work the Hill, and from advocating for school choice and other things, that it matters when people go up there. So I think he's the right person for the right time, and looking forward to doing whatever I can do to help him.
So Adam, Chip touched on a little bit of October 7th and the rise of anti-Semitism inside of campuses. We saw it in Columbia, we saw it in some of the other Ivies. And what's the position of FAU on making sure that we're protecting all students?
Yeah, and I think it's important to start with that we are ensuring that it's a welcoming campus and that it's a safe campus for all students to be able to pursue their academic endeavors. But I want to take you back 12, 13 years ago, and this is one of those perspectives that I have, having been from this community and having represented the Florida Atlantic University Boca Raton campus during my time in the state legislature, and being a champion for the university during my time in the state legislature, whether it was securing funding for the medical school or the engineering building. So I have a long history of championing the university, but I also have a long history of being involved in the community, serving on the Dean's Advisory Board for the College of Business. And if you go back to 2012, early 2013, anti-Semitism was rampant on the Boca Raton campus. And it was a major problem at Florida Atlantic, even when it wasn't necessarily as big of a problem on other campuses around the country. And so what I think Chip touched on is very true, which is that the state university system, Florida Atlantic is one of 12 members of the state university system.
That to be the number one state university system in the country, right?
The U.S. News and World Report rankings has, for 9 years in a row, ranked the Florida State University system as #1 in the country, lowest in-state tuition in the country, highest four-year graduation rates in the country, so many other metrics that have helped us to achieve that. But on this issue, Governor DeSantis and the leadership of this state has been very clear that there will not be protests, there will not be the disruptions and chaos on our college campuses, on our university campuses, like you've seen at some of the more supposedly elite institutions in the country. And what I've come in from day one, and Chip mentioned briefly the Florida Israel Institute, which we're going to reinvigorate, what I've come in and said is that Florida Atlantic University will be the safest, most welcoming, and most engaging campus in the country for Jewish life. And we are going to make sure that all of our students feel welcome, regardless of their backgrounds, but that our Jewish students know that they are going to be safe from any of those types of disruptions and chaos that have caused so much trauma and so much harm. And so we live in a community that I think will be very welcoming and very supportive and receptive of that. And I'm proud to announce we received an amazing philanthropic gift from Marilyn Wallach and her family to donate $20 million to build the Wallach Holocaust and Jewish Studies building on the Boca Raton campus, which will be a magnet, which will be a centerpiece for us to be able to not only invite the community in, but it's going to be a great place. And Alan, I think you and other educators will appreciate this, where it's going to be a great place for us to train teachers for Holocaust education, which is so important. And so I think we have a responsibility to all of our students, but I think we are going to make sure that the Florida Atlantic campuses are a safe and welcoming place for Jewish students.
I think that's, thank you for saying that. So how do we make Florida Atlantic University, in the minds of all Broward County, its university?
So one thing that I would share with you now, and I may say it again at the end, is the reason I'm here is to further the fact that we have 3 campuses in Broward County. Dr. Polsky is our Broward campus leader. If you haven't met him already, it's because you've been hiding, because I know how active he is in the community, and that's important. But he knows, and I think everyone at the university knows, how important I view Broward County to the future of our university. And so I don't want you to just think of Florida Atlantic as a university in your hometown. I want you to think of Florida Atlantic as your hometown university. Many of you probably did not get a degree or attend Florida Atlantic. Many of you probably didn't send your children or your grandchildren to Florida Atlantic. But the one thing that I know, and it's something I've learned very quickly in 90 days, is that so much of the philanthropic support that we have as a university, like from Marilyn Wallach, like from so many others, including just some of the more recent support that we've received here in Broward County, are from people that had no tie to the university. But they came onto campus, or they met someone from the university, and their reaction was, wow, I didn't realize this was happening right here in my backyard on the Florida Atlantic campus. So my job as university president, and Chip touched on this, is be the top lobbyist for the university, be the top fundraiser for the university, and be the top brand ambassador for the university. And I know the more people that I can get onto our campuses, the more they can see our students, the more they can see our faculty, the more they can see our programs and what we're doing in so many different areas, the more that they are going to want to engage with Florida Atlantic and become part of our broader OWL community. And so that means coming to a football game, coming to a basketball game, coming onto campus, being a mentor for some of our students who are first generation in their family to go to college. There's so many ways. Our Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. There's so many different ways to engage with FAU. That's my job, is to make sure people know how to be a part of FAU, and we're going to do everything we can to be an important part of this community.
Chip, how does some of this fit in with some of the economic things, that, the economy issues that you dealt with on the state legislative side? How do we feed from FAU into the Broward economy?
So I think there's a few things. I'm going to bring up one person who's no longer with us, but made a gift, because you made the comment that a lot of people don't have anybody in their family, or they didn't individually go attend Florida Atlantic University. Jim Moran made a $100 million contribution to Florida State University. Because he went there? No. Because his kids went there? No. That's where he decided to put the Jim Moran Institute, because of relationships. And again, I'll go back to, with Adam here, with Colin, and the rest of the team, when these connections are made with people and they understand. I'm going to give you a perfect example. My nephew is a rising 8th grader, leaving the 7th grade at A.D. Henderson at FAU. He's on the debate team. He's on the drone team. He's traveled around the country with some of these other students. He spent a week last week at the courthouse in Ari Porth's courtroom. I don't know, it might have been a divergence for him too. I'll ask him.
Good diversion strategy.
But it was on the right side of the bench, correct?
Yes, he wasn't.
Okay, good.
He wasn't a defendant. But just a lot of the things that are happening, I think when people are exposed to that, to your point, when someone's exposed to the idea that we have Harbor Branch, we have CTEC, we have all these other things that we don't know, and let's get to the basics. I mean, we had that great Final Four run. My experience in legislating and writing and passing the country's really first active NIL legislation, I can tell you from talking to all of the 12 and also University of Miami and a couple other privates, all the athletic directors, the best athletic director in the state of Florida is sitting at Florida Atlantic University. So Adam knows that his number 2 job is to make sure Brian White's happy. But that's a key indicator on why universities get recognized, right? We have all the U.S. News and World Report stats. We have the social mobility. I was a commuter student through early before I got married to Eileen, and then our first few years traveling up to FAU at night and working the daytime. I mean, it's a different thing today, but if you look at really look at kind of what that means. Where else can you go to college other than maybe Pepperdine, which is pretty expensive? Where else can you go to college? Was it 1.8 miles from the beach? Live in Boca Raton, live in Fort Lauderdale, live downtown, and go to college. I mean, there's a million ways to spin that. But your question on the economics is include the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, include the chambers, include the business organizations. Realize that there are companies moving down here that were never here. Right across the way, that building that says Future Tech on it. That's a company that could be here, could be anywhere else. Top Dell company in the country, and the things they do. What FAU should create is a pool of good employees for them, right? A workforce for them, a workforce path, and the same thing goes for everything right out in our blue ocean.
I mean, one of the projects is the Ocean Exchange, right? And so why don't you describe some of the involvement of the university in the Ocean Exchange that's been a focus of the workshop?
Well, going back to our founding and connecting it to our future, the university was founded as the first ocean engineering university in the country. And so when you think about what's happening now, and something that I worked on during my time in the legislature was the Office of Ocean Engineering and the Center of Excellence for being able to harness power from the ocean. And it's now emerged into the Office of Ocean Economy, which Dr. Polsky and his team, many of them are here today, are helping us to advance that initiative because it's so important to Florida. It's so important to Florida's success. And it's not just tourism on the ocean. When you start to think about our yacht industry down here, when you start to think about all the other ways that the ocean economy and even clean water and other things related to water in general have an impact on our region. This is something that we're proud to have housed and hosted at Florida Atlantic University. And it goes back to my point of how do you differentiate Florida Atlantic University from every other school in the state university system and every other school around the country. So to be known as the Ocean University, in addition to being the Opportunity University, to be known as the Ocean University, I think makes us very special and very unique.
Chip, take that a step further as the chair of the Economic Infrastructure Committee. Describe what that is and then tie that back to some of what Adam talked about around our economy in South Florida being dependent on the waterways and the boating industry and whatnot.
So real quick, so folks know what the Economic Infrastructure Committee is that I've had the privilege to chair this year and will do again next year. It's a combination of multiple other subcommittees under Commerce from years past, and it encompasses energy and utilities. So think of all your telecoms, your FPL issues, your infrastructure for power, hardening the grid, things like that, as well as transportation infrastructure, anything in and around communication, energy, utilities, and roads and bridges. And why that's important to things like the Office of the Ocean Economy. I'll give you a few examples. I mean, obviously, Adam touched on what we're trying to do, and that's harness the Gulf Stream, right? The Gulf Stream is a free of charge by Mother Nature power source out in the ocean that is moving water, and if we can harness that, much like we're doing with solar and wind in other states, it would set Florida as the leader in issues like that. And I know the work that Dr. Sullivan's doing and Dr. Polsky. I mean, probably one of the coolest things I've been able to do in the last few years was spend a half a day with Dr. Sullivan up at Harbor Branch, and you kind of scratch your head, you go, I went to FAU, I didn't know this existed. I mean, you knew it was there, but you didn't know what was there. And it's really special. It touches on national defense research, it touches on economic research, and back to your point, all of these research items, and the easiest way to kind of make the example is, why does the University of Florida make money off every time you buy a bottle of Gatorade or Gatorade Zero? Because it was created there, right? So that is, to me, that is with water products and it's not just your things you normally think of, science and all that. I sat with Adam's predecessor and we talked about some of the things as this bill was moving forward and why I thought it was important to have it at Florida Atlantic and not USF or UCF or another school. She made a great example about hair care and skin care products coming out of the ocean, out of sea life and other things. I mean, these are not just small things, right? These are things that if you have a wife who looks spectacular all the time, like I know you do and I do, these are very costly products, and if we can harness some of those and bring them to market, I think but there's a lot of things in that space. It's infrastructure, it's personal goods, other things.
Can I go back to one thing, though, that
Sure.
Chip talked on? Chip talked about his experience attending Florida Atlantic University in an era right around the time that the university was known as, and I have now officially banned the commuter word from our vernacular, but that's historically what the university was once it became a four-year university in 1984. Upper division only for the first 20, and then mostly a commuter school from 84 to 2004. What we have done is really transform the university. We now have nearly 5,000 residence hall beds on campus, and we're building, just saw it today, it's going up, we're at the third floor already, but we're building another 670 beds on campus, and we hope to be able to expand and build more. But one of the biggest challenges, and I think this room understands it because you all talk about it in other contexts, which is that affordable housing is a major issue for us as a university because we only have so much housing on our campus. Once our students, and I told you who our students are, Pell eligible, first in their family to go to college, when they have to move off campus as second-year students, they're now competing for housing against everybody else that wants to move to this amazing region. And they can't afford the $5,000 a month apartments on the ocean or even just a little bit inland. And they can't put 8 people to a house like you may have seen in some college campus environments in other parts of the state and other parts of the country. And so we struggle in terms of our 4-year graduation rates and our retention rates, which we're graded on as part of the state university system, Board of Governor metrics and the accountability metrics and the performance-based funding. We struggle from that because our students need to work. Our students can't necessarily afford to live there, so maybe they have to go back home or wherever they came from to put in, puts a little delay in pursuing their education. And so please know that these are the issues you're talking about also impact Florida Atlantic. And so we're trying to find ways to be able to help our students continue their education, graduate in 4 years, stay at Florida Atlantic from their first year to their second year and their second year to their third year. And so these are real challenges for the region. So all the things that make this region amazing and all the things we love about it are also part of the flip side of the coin, which are our challenges, because those students that move off campus, they have to move further and further out, and they lose that campus experience and that community experience. And so it's a big challenge for us.
Chip, how do we address that?
So we hear the word affordability often, but it's always tagged on to housing affordability. And while that's very important, it seems that a lot of folks in this region in elected offices want to focus on that one issue. But if you think about everything else, how does it make sense to focus on specifically housing affordability while you're also a body of government that might be raising taxes, which is also causing more problems towards the housing affordability? But looking at everything in that pocket, right? It's all where does the money come from? How do you spend it? If the university is much more affordable, if the university is accessible, I think that's a big part of this. So I think the overall affordability is the model we should be looking at. I mean, yes, we want to make sure we have affordable housing and housing affordability at all levels, but certainly in areas where Florida Atlantic University is blessed to be, Boca Raton, downtown Fort Lauderdale, Davie, these are areas that are doing their best, but by adding more density and adding more housing, but at the same time, check the price of some of these houses here, right? I mean, some of these apartments here, it's not cheap, but
it's not just for students. It's not just for students. It's for us being able to recruit and retain faculty. We have to be able to attract top faculty from around the country to move here. I know we just got one of our newest members of our ocean economy team to move here from California. I asked him how he is enjoying the humidity. And maybe moving from California to this area might not be as much of a shock.
Right.
But from others who are moving to this area from college environments, college campus environments, more rural environments, this is going to be expensive. So we have to work on this issue because it impacts the success of the university, both in the short term and I think in the long term as well.
You know, we wouldn't have a housing crisis if so many people didn't want to live here. Right. So there is something said about that. I mean, just the obvious supply and demand, right? That said, let me skip over to you. Now you're in front of the father of NIL. Yeah. So how is that impacting your sports programs and you're attracting quality athletes that give the university a certain level of exposure that is difficult to achieve otherwise?
Yeah, so Chip is 100% right. We are extremely blessed to have Brian White as our athletic director. His brother, just to give you a little bit of his family background, his brother is currently the athletic director at University of Tennessee, which has probably the most preeminent sports programs in the country. There's probably a lot of Gator fans in here that would disagree, but University of Tennessee is tops. His dad was athletic director at Notre Dame and Duke, and so he comes from a background of athletic directors. And so, yes, I focus every day as well. And so I focus every day on making sure Brian White's happy because athletics are a front porch to the university. It's how so many people find out about the university. So many people do know about Florida Atlantic because of the Final Four run, right? We have a 44% increase last year to this year in out-of-state applications. Now, there's a lot of reasons behind that, but the Final Four run definitely was a positive factor in that brand awareness around the country. But that same Final Four team had 3 players that while they stayed 1 year after with Coach Dusty May, when Dusty left, 3 players left. Vlad went with him. 1 player went to Arkansas, and then Elijah Martin won a national title with the Gators in this Final Four this past year. One quick note. When Elijah Martin, after the game, the first thing he said after he won a national championship with the University of Florida was a shout-out to his Boca boys and gave an owls up, thanking Florida Atlantic for everything that we did for him that got him to the University of Florida to win that national championship. He's the first player ever to go to 2 Final Fours with 2 different teams. But your question then is after all those players left, we restocked our team with a brand new coach this past season, and 4 of those players that helped us get to a NIT bid, which is the National Invitational Tournament, not the NCAA, but we did get a postseason with our basketball team. 4 of those players just left. First year came in, and they're already being offered $1 million a year from other universities around the country. And so college football, which is where most of the NIL deals go, college basketball second most, women's basketball is probably third most, but we're leaving out so many of our other sports. We won a conference championship FAU just did this season in women's softball. We won a conference championship in women's tennis. We won a conference championship in beach volleyball and went to the NCAA tournament in all of those sports. They don't get a lot of the attention because they don't have the big television contracts. And so the settlement, and I'll let Chip go further into the details, but this most recent settlement that you may have read about, which allows universities to now compensate, pay directly instead of through the NIL deals, there is a $20.5 million cap on that. Florida Atlantic can't afford it. We just don't get that much revenue from our media rights, and we don't have that much revenue in terms of philanthropic support. We have signed a deal. We're part of the American Conference, and we signed a deal to have a floor of $3.3 million a year. We're the only conference that has established a floor to make sure that we're staying competitive. But that delta between universities paying 20.5 and the minimum floor that we're setting at 3.3, that's a lot of money that's going to be able to attract top athletes that then put you on television, that then win you games, that then win you the notoriety. And so, Chip, maybe I'll turn it to you to get a little more into the details of NIL Go and how this is all
what
going
are
to
the
play
safeguards,
out.
Chip? Seriously.
So I'll say this, one of the coolest first deals that happened after July 1, 2021, when the law was in effect, was I was in Tallahassee with former Commissioner of Education, Richard Corcoran, who was sitting in for the governor, and Florida State quarterback then, Mackenzie Milton, who had gone from UCF, had a horrible leg injury. He was undefeated there, went to Florida State. He got one of the first NIL deals, and what he did is bring five of his teammates, asked the Miller's Ale House in Tallahassee to raise the NIL bid for $1,000 up by $200 so we could split it with these other guys. So what you see, the other one that was really cool and why it's important here is Florida Atlantic University had, through the Florida Panthers created their own NIL organization within the team and with the ownership, and they went to FAU and they said, we want a specific NIL contract with all of your female athletes. Not that they had any problem with the male athletes, but we wanted to concentrate just on the female athletes. And they had a specific game where all the beach volleyball players came, and it turned out, ironically, my wife was I won't say the year, she'll shoot me, but Cardinal Gibbons state champion 2 years in a row. And one of the girls who was there, her mom played on that team. So it was really neat to see FAU do something unique and do it with the Florida Panthers. So a lot of the different things have happened, but right now I think we're getting down to brass taxes where this is now going to be, semi-pro. Certainly football, basketball, other areas of this. But I think what's important is, how do we get here? This wasn't a right versus left issue. The only opposition I really had in Tallahassee when we came up to have this conversation about NIL back in 2020 was, why are these circumstances here? And a lot of people think, wow, college athletes going to make a ton of money when they turn pro and they get drafted by the Miami Dolphins. 90+% never go pro. Many of the sports don't have a professional league. And to that point, this is their time to make money off their name, image, and likeness. It's their market. It's their brand. If you are a scientist, you can work while you're in school. If you are an artist, you can create art, and you can get paid for it. These athletes couldn't.
I have to say, as a university president, I also have a job balancing now between the spending on athletics and focusing on our academic mission. And so we need to be able to bring in enough money from media rights and outside revenue to support athletics, put winning teams on the field. To Chip's point, 98% of our student athletes are not going pro in the sport that they play in college. We need to prepare them for the real world. We need to prepare them for careers in something else. And so we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of the academic mission as part of our investments into athletics, in spite of the fact that we all love going to games. We all love cheering on our favorite team. And I know after today, everyone's going to love cheering on their hometown university. But I think it's very important. We can't spend that $20.5 million, but we need to support our student athletes, and we need to be competitive on the field just as much as we need to make sure our students are successful in the classroom.
So let's switch gears in a certain sense. Competitiveness from Florida Atlantic University. Obviously, you're a little bit at a disadvantage of a school that's willing to spend up to the cap, right? And you're maybe spending $3 to $5 million based upon the floor, right, that you have in your conference. How do you compete with that?
Yes.
And dovetail it into the academic side, because in the end, that is the mission of the university. And so how do you compete for quality students by virtue of the fact that the athletics being on television essentially drives name ID of the university and drives interest and applications? And you're also judged on the metrics of how many applications you receive versus how many spots you have.
Yeah. So what I would share with you is that for us anyway, we're going to be focused on winning conference championships and getting NCAA bids to tournaments. And I shared with you about our 3 women's teams that I'm super proud of. And so we need to go out and promote that. We need more people to come and see women's basketball and some of our other Olympic sports. And that's a big deal. Just one quick segue though. We have one sport on campus that's not a NCAA Division I sport. It's a club sport. But we are the Division II national champions in club hockey for the entire country. And so that's a big deal. I know Gail and I were talking earlier, the Florida Panthers invited the national champion FAU, they call them the Frozen Owls, to come to one of the games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And they had a box and they did a whole thing for them on the video on the Jumbotron. And I'm hoping that if the Panthers win the Stanley Cup, we have some good relationships.
Not
a lot
if.
of people.
It's not an if. It's not an if.
Okay, good. When they win the Stanley Cup, that they bring the cup to Florida Atlantic to be able to show it off to the Frozen Owls and to the campus. But going back to your point, this is a balancing act, right? And so as we attract more students, there's more competition. The type of student, like I said earlier, the academic competitiveness is going up. And at the same time, we also are not spending the money that some of these other universities are spending on athletics. So we have to focus on being the best in the American. And there are some tough competitors in there. Army, Navy, Memphis. You start thinking about USF. You start thinking about some of these other schools. So if we can put quality teams on the field and compete, and we have great coaches in football and basketball and women's softball and women's basketball. I apologize to any Nova folks in the room because FAU just stole the women's basketball coach. We're excited about Leanne Friedland coming from D2 up to D1. So we have a great place for people to want to come to play, and we just need to be able to offer enough money to get them to come here and compete. And we do know that if they're super successful, like we saw this past year in basketball, we may not have them for all 4 years. We may only get them for 1 year. So we have some work to do there.
So, Chip, the Florida legislature has focused in on both K-12 education, higher ed, in focusing in on encouraging its universities to provide degrees where the jobs are and where industry is not where they are today, but where it's going later on, whether it's AI or whatever. Talk a little bit about where the focus has been on the state side, and then I want Adam to jump to some of the practicality about how you focus your courses and your offerings to academic offerings to students.
Sure. So in order to make up to the Nova Southeastern folks in here, my district aide, Kiara Coleman, is here. If you'd raise your hand. That's who you call if you need your driver's license renewed or anything here locally. She's been doing an amazing job. And then also to further mention why NSU is important to our community, along with obviously FAU, when we did the Office of the Ocean Economy, we included private research institutes because they're working together already, working together on the Marine Research Hub. We have Cato Fallon here, and so we're a community working together. Now, to your point, what did Wayne Gretzky always say? He doesn't want to be where the puck is. He wants to skate to where it's going to be, right? And that's what we need to do with jobs, right? We need to look.
By the way, anybody not know who Wayne Gretzky is? Okay, good.
I didn't recognize him, though, in the booth the last couple of days. He looks a little different.
He's a little older. Go ahead. He's still the great one. Let's go.
So the bottom line is if it's Future Tech, if it's Cisco, if it's somebody here in town, if it's UKG or whatever it is in the tech world, what do we want to do at Florida Atlantic University? And quite honestly, Broward College feeding into that, because they do a lot of great work together, housed in the same building. What do we want to do prior to them getting there? We want to make sure that K-12 is teaching those programs. I think the most empowering thing you can give to a student, myself, a product of a single-parent household by way of my mother was a widow at 25 years old, we didn't have school choice. I have an uncle who's a Catholic priest. I'm very Catholic, except for my 8% being Jewish, apparently, from my DNA. But my wife went to Catholic school. I went to public school. What would have empowered my mother in education was saying, all right, I want to send my child to a Catholic school. Today, what can you do? You can send your child to a charter school. You can send your child to a public magnet like Pompano. You can send your child to a private, a Catholic, and get the funds from the state, right, sent to you, reimbursed. And I think personally that, the parent can make that decision of where's that program. I mean, my wife's sister and my brother-in-law already made that decision with my nephew and chose to drive from Lighthouse Point to Boca every day to bring him to FAU, A.D. Henderson,
right,
and possibly at FAU High, because there's certain programs there. Fort Lauderdale High School, the Cambridge program. I think giving the parent the choice and not being dictated by the zip code you're born in to go to school is the biggest thing we can do. And part of that is, it gets to your point, and I know Adam will take this to the next level, but is finding that school that's working in that space. I mean, I put myself through school by computer-aided drafting and design, right? I learned it in middle school and high school and went to FAU at night and did that in the daytime. I was able to pay for my college on a skill set that I had. Got a job with it post that. And I think having something that's in the future workforce as a program, you can say, well, this is going to be a big area. Obviously, AI is an easy answer to a lot of things, but it's not the answer, right? Saw a great billboard with a picture of a almost completed building. I think it was Mike, what's his name? The Dirty Jobs guy. It said,
Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe, have AI try to finish this building. And Tracy Miller's here. We know it can't. But there are a lot of things that can make that process more efficient and easier. But I think, to your point, you skate to where the puck is going to be, and you try to make sure that job is there. And it's not to be negative at all on certain programs. I'm sure in our arts community, which I'm very tied to, we need to have docents. We need to have people who are versed in Russian history and other things. But we don't need to go to school for something where you might not find a job. It's not a matter of what you're studying. It's a matter of where you're going to have a career. And you have to love it. You have to want to do it.
So, Adam, given the competition at the higher ed level, where students have choices galore as to what type of university and what kind of setting, and frankly, to go to university at all, how do you skate to where the puck is going to be?
Yeah, so I think the state of Florida, and we talked earlier about why Florida is number one. One of the other reasons why the state of Florida university system is so high rated is because, just like we did with K through 12 in the state, we started to measure what matters for higher education. And so each of the 12 state universities are graded and held accountable on certain metrics. And we talked about 4-year graduation rates, retention from freshman to sophomore, 6-year graduation rates for Pell eligible, 3-year graduation rates for transfer students. But 2 other metrics that we're held accountable for are how many STEM undergraduate degrees are you granting and how many STEM graduate degrees are you granting. And when you look at our student population, 31,000 students across our campuses, 25,500 undergraduate, 5,500 graduate, and you start to now look at which are our largest colleges: College of Business, College of Science, the College of Engineering, and you start to realize that people are gravitating toward those majors because they understand and they're getting that education and that experience early on to know, hey, if I want to get out of college and get a job, these are the skills that I need to have. And so 2 of the other metrics are, within a year, are you getting a job? And are you above $50,000 a year in salary after you graduate from college? And so we're now providing the tools and the skills that students need in order to be successful. But there is major disruption in higher education, right? It's demographically. I'm reading every single day about colleges closing, about campuses within state university systems like Pennsylvania closing, right? So you have university systems all over the country now pulling back. We still in Florida are not seeing a demographic decline, right? You're also seeing economic disruption in terms of the cost of higher education. We still have the most affordable higher education in the country for in-state, and I may have said this earlier, but our out-of-state tuition in some instances is less than some states' in-state tuition. So that's why you're starting to see more and more people come to Florida. And so the cost issues and the ROI issues are big. And then finally, technologically. And it's not just technologically because students are using AI or faculty's using AI. There's a lot of disruption as to whether or not students should even be going for a college degree. Do they need that college degree? And so the disruption is that what students learn during their 4 years, and if it even needs to be 4 years, but the disruption is, are you getting the skills that you need and the tools that you need? And then more likely, what are universities and what are others doing in terms of making sure that you have lifelong learning where you can come back after you graduate to get certain types of skills that are necessary in order to not just stay competitive or not just be competitive, but to stay and remain competitive in the workforce. And so this is a K-20 issue in Florida, and I think Florida looks at it holistically as a education system from our kindergarten and K through 12 all the way through higher education and graduate education. And so I think Florida is a leader right now in making sure that students are getting what they need today and more importantly, prepared for, I think, the changes that are coming in the future.
So let me
real quick on that. So it's also the relationships that the universities create, right? The likelihood that someone's going to get a job is much highly affected if you have a relationship with your local public health systems in Palm Beach County and in Broward County, and you're a nursing student or you're a medical student at Florida Atlantic University, and you've got access to that work or other fields. But I think those relationships are obviously a big part of it, and FAU does a great job at it.
So that's a great way to segue to one of the questions from the audience, and the question reads, I'll read the card because it's a compliment. It seems you seem to be everywhere in Broward County. It feels like FAU is our hometown university. What can the business community do to help reach your 5-year goal?
Yeah, so first and foremost is hire an owl. And if you're not going to hire an owl, bring an intern into your organization, because for a student who's interning in their major, they are more likely when they graduate to get the job and have 15% higher pay. And as I talked earlier about our challenges, our students are forced to make a tough choice between working and interning. And so we need to make sure that those internships are paying. And if they're not paying, one of my major initiatives as president of the university is going to be to create a fund, a president's fund, to help to subsidize internships with nonprofits and with government agencies so our students can get the experience that they need. That experiential learning opportunity is so critical. So we want to be the talent pipeline for this region, and we want our students to stay here after they get the Florida Atlantic University experience and degree. And the only way that happens is if you all in the private sector down here hire them, work with Dr. Polsky, who has just initiated our new program called WIN, Workforce Innovation Network, and that's to do exactly these types of things, which is to create that talent pipeline for the hard skills as well as the durable, transferable skills that you need in the private sector, you need in the workforce, and we need to be able to provide.
I'm going to give this question to you both. It says, go Owls. So what are your specific plans and goals for the Broward campuses? And is there anything on the board to develop greater resources on those campuses?
So we have 3 Broward campuses that are part of our university. We have the
Maybe get a state legislative.
more money.
A little bit more money.
More money.
What do you think?
The SeaTech campus, the Dania Beach campus, which is predominantly our ocean engineering campus. It's not necessarily a campus where students are going for instructional education, but it is a research campus. It's where we have a lot of our PhD students on campus and doing research. So we need to expand our ability to attract more research dollars. And so SeaTech and Harbor Branch working together for that. Our downtown Fort Lauderdale campus, which we share the building on Las Olas with Broward College, I will tell you that it's my vision to make that a mainstay and a integrated part with the Fort Lauderdale vibe, with the Fort Lauderdale community, and it just hasn't been. I recognize that, but the one thing that exists in our Fort Lauderdale campus that is second to none in the country is our School of Architecture. And our School of Architecture, talk about AI, our School of Architecture has become one of the most highly recognized and revered schools of architecture in the entire country. And their incorporation of AI into their education and their programming is incredible. We just had a young woman interning for Styles, and she was able to develop a life safety program in 5 seconds in what normally would have taken a day or longer in terms of somebody sitting at a drafting table and coming up with all these solutions. So I want to make sure that we're making our downtown Las Olas campus a very important part of the heartbeat of Fort Lauderdale. And then our Davie campus, which has really suffered in the aftermath of COVID in terms of attracting students. We really need to reimagine the Davie campus as a workforce campus, is something that I talked about earlier in terms of providing the credentialing and providing the perhaps non-degree types of programs where the population, which a lot of it is in Western Broward County, can access both in person and online. I think that's a big part of the future of the Broward campuses. And I would just say this, that Florida Atlantic University was created in 1964 with the vision of creating more access to higher education and more innovation in higher education. And it's amazing because when you go back and look at the founding of this university, the founding of the university was based on distance learning. At the time, we had the state-of-the-art audio-visual equipment to be able to record classes and beam them out into space, as they said back then, so that people could access that education remotely. So we're going to connect our founding to our future and be able to be a little bit more nimble in making sure that we're being able to provide education in the right places at the right time. And so I think Broward's an important part of that.
Chip? Obviously, representing and living in Broward County, I agree that we need some focus and attention here, and specifically on that building. And obviously, it plays into the partnership with Broward College and FAU being in the same place. Tony Abate is here, and he did an amazing job the time he was here. And I have to say that I think I was in this room, and Dr. Polsky was in this chair talking about resiliency. And in a room normally when some might go this way or that way and basically say, well, you know, sea level rise, other things, well, that's your fault. It's 'cause you're driving the wrong car, these other things. I never heard anybody explain the issue of why we need to go down this path of working for, working on projects that will make us more resilient here, but also from the workforce job aspect of it, right? So Broward County has a lot of great businesses that do a lot in that space, and I think if we can focus on things the other universities are not doing, and even if we focus on things that Boca's not doing, and we do them in Broward County, as Adam said, with respect to workforce, I think there's a lot of great opportunity.
So the last question from the audience was the research park at FAU.
The Andrew Duffel.
And were you in?
Andrew Duffel's in the audience. He's the CEO of the research park.
Describe what it does for everybody, and then have you been impacted by any of the state or federal cuts?
So we have been impacted by some of the reductions at the
That was
federal
from
level. That was from a, but I can say this, of the 12 universities, much less so than some of the others. We are impacted by the reduction, the proposed reduction for indirect costs. So I think there's going to be a solution to that in the future. But for now, we're paying very close attention to it, and we have lost a few research grants. But because we're competing in areas a little bit outside of what has been severely impacted or significantly impacted, like NIH funding, it has left us much more unharmed than other universities. And I think we're about ready to announce some really exciting grants that we just received through our Cancer Center of Excellence. And so those are state grants, and I'm proud to say that I was the legislator that helped to create the funding for that almost 20 years ago. And now to be able to participate in that type of peer-reviewed research for cancer research, I think is really exciting. Going back to the research park, it's one of only a handful of research parks in the entire state university system. It was modeled off of the research park out in Stanford. 40 years ago, Andrew, the CEO of the research park, Florida Atlantic Research Development Authority, they just celebrated their 40th anniversary. And there's a lot of activity on the Boca Raton campus. There's also a satellite research park campus in Deerfield Beach right along I-95, which Chip, you know as well. But I would say that more and more, as people are choosing Boca Raton and South Florida as the destination for their businesses, we're finding better opportunities to collaborate with tenants at the research park. So FAU doesn't own the land. FAU doesn't control the research park, but we work in collaboration, and we're looking forward to even more collaboration with the research park, not just necessarily with businesses that move in there and collaborate with us on research or hire our students or work with our faculty and have internship programs, but perhaps to more robustly develop the remaining part of the research park for the betterment of the university.
So Chip, to close out on your end, what can the state do to help FAU achieve its goals and help
now I get to be like, more money.
So you might have read in the newspapers that we still have not finished our budget process. We have an agreement, and I know Candace has been working up there with me the last couple of weeks trying to make sure certain infrastructure projects for the cities and other funding. There was some funding specifically for the ocean economy and other things, but every university is obviously going to have asks in there. We are at an agreement on total budget, and we should be in Tallahassee on Monday to vote on the final budget, which would then require us to stay for 72 more hours till it cools off. I think when you've gone like 90 days of session, that's enough cooling. But either way, we should be done by next Thursday, and we should have some real understanding of where the dollars are. But moving forward and in the future, I know that I'll see Adam and Ryan Britton and the team and other education professionals up there explaining why. I do have to compliment on the downtown architectural program, School of Architecture. When AIA Day, which days in Tallahassee, which is American Institute of Architects, when they come up, I think they all identify me as an owl. I mean, literally 20 FAU architectural students come in, and it's amazing. And they follow specific bills. I did a resiliency bill a few years ago, and they want to know, they make it a priority for them. So now you have 20 more advocates out there. But the reality is, it's money, right? We need, but we need to spend it wisely. It's other people's money, and we're either trying to pay down the debt, save for a rainy day, or invest in the right programs. And the invest in the right programs bucket is going to be higher ed, and Florida Atlantic University needs to continue to bring great projects forward that we can get multiple members to stand behind. And that's the challenge, right? I live in coastal Broward County. The university is headquartered in Boca Raton. The member up in Boca Raton and I work together on some things, so it's finding the right mix of House and Senate members to make that ask and make sure that they're willing to be up there instead of being home with the family and advocate for those dollars, because it's a fight.
Adam, President Hasner.
So
You're closed, and then I want you to do a little fashion show for us.
You got it. So I'll close by saying this. I am honored to be the president of my hometown university. And as I said earlier, I hope you will make this your hometown university. And in case anybody had any doubt that I was owl in, Ed wanted me to show off the inside of my jacket.